Enslaved families often faced separation due to sales. Slaveholders had the authority to sell enslaved individuals at their discretion, whether to maintain control, settle debts, divide estates, or as a form of punishment. To enhance their wealth, slaveholders frequently bought and sold people. The domestic slave trade resulted in more than half of all enslaved individuals being torn from their parents and spouses. Additionally, slaveholders could transfer enslaved people on loan between plantations, further disrupting family bonds. For instance, on larger plantations, 1 in 3 enslaved fathers had a different owner than his wife. American law did not acknowledge slave marriages or familial connections. While slaveholders might promote marriage, understanding that those with loved ones were less likely to attempt escape, these unions lacked legal recognition, meaning owners could separate couples at any moment. One man in Akron, Ohio, was separated from his parents and siblings as a child for 27 years. But unlike a majority of the formerly enslaved, he would hear from them again. Henry Hall was an intelligent colored man living at 188 North Broadway in Akron, Ohio. He was born a Louisiana slave in 1849. His earliest recollection is of being the property of a man named Bat in New Orleans. Upon Bat's passing in 1851, his possessions, including those he'd enslaved, were auctioned off to settle his debts. James Lusk Alcorn, the governor of Mississippi, became his new owner. Henry, or Harry as he was then called, accompanied Governor Alcorn to his plantation called Eagle's Nest at Friars Point, Mississippi. In 1854, when he was 7 years old, Henry was separated from his family and sent with others by the governor to his sister's plantation in Alabama. She needed help, and Alcorn had a surplus of hands. Henry stayed in Alabama until 1862, when he became a fugitive slave and escaped to enlist in the Union Army. He served with the 5th Minnesota Infantry Regiment until the end of the war, participating in numerous battles and campaigns that were crucial to the Union's success. His bravery and dedication earned him the respect of his fellow soldiers and superior officers. When the rebellion ended, Henry joined the tide of movement toward the north. Initially, he intended to go to Minnesota with the officer he had served under. However, while on the boat heading north, he was persuaded to change his plans and go to Ohio instead. Henry first settled in the small town of Peninsula before eventually moving to the city of Akron. The winter of 1881 would have found Henry as a man who had lived more than 3/4 of his life without any knowledge of his family's whereabouts or well-being. This prolonged period of separation underscores the profound dislocation experienced by many during that era, where records were sparse and reunification was a near impossibility. For Henry, the lack of information extended to the point of forgetting the name of his former owner, a detail that might seem minor, but highlights the extent of his disconnection from his past. This loss of memory could be attributed to the trauma of his experiences or the sheer passage of time, which can erode even the most significant details of one's early life. One cold night, Henry was deep in dreamland, his mind wandering through the labyrinth of his subconscious. The world outside was silent, blanketed in a layer of frost, but inside his head, vivid images danced and played out stories long forgotten. When he woke early the next morning, the chill in the air contrasted sharply with the warmth of his bed. He rubbed his eyes and settled into the comforting routine of stretching and yawning. But something was different this time. A fragment of his dream lingered with unusual clarity. For the first time, Henry recalled the name Alcorn. It felt familiar, yet elusive, like a word on the tip of his tongue. Alongside this name came a vision of his mother, appearing just as she looked the last time he hugged her. Her face was serene, her eyes filled with the unconditional love he remembered so well. The dream felt almost real, as if she had visited him from beyond the veil of sleep to offer a moment of comfort and connection. Henry pondered the significance of this dream. Was Alcorn a place, a person, or something else entirely? And why had his mother appeared in his dream now, after all these years? The questions swirled in his mind as he got ready for the day, the memory of his mother's embrace giving him a strange sense of peace and motivation. He decided to hold on to the name Alcorn, hoping that in time its meaning would reveal itself and perhaps guide him to new discoveries about his past and his future. A few weeks later, a second dream came to him, the facts and faces standing out even more distinctly than before. The dreams were so pronounced that he mentioned them to an attorney friend in Akron. His friend informed him that the name Alcorn was none other than that of the former governor of Mississippi. The attorney had the wherewithal to write a note of inquiry to Governor Alcorn, seeking clarity.
Dear Governor Alcorn,
Henry Hall, otherwise known as Harry Bat Alcorn, has recently embarked on a journey to establish a connection with his relatives. He has come across some information that suggests you might be a key person who could assist in this endeavor. He recalls being in your possession for a period of time before being sent to your sister's plantation. Any insight or information you could provide would be greatly appreciated. Sincerely, L.D. Waters, Esquire.
Eagle Nest, Jonestown, Mississippi, December 19th, 1881. My dear Sir, in reply to your letter of the 12th requesting information about the relatives of Henry Bat, alias Harry Alcorn, am glad to say that I was able to deliver your letter into the hands of Harry's mother, who is rejoiced to know that her son, supposed to be dead, yet lived. His mother, Eveline, is now, and has been most of the time since the close of the war, a member of my family. She has with her a daughter, now a young woman, whom Harry has not met. His brother, James Bat, who is married and has a number of children, and who has lived with me most of the time since the war, now resides in Jackson, Mississippi, where a letter will find him. Sophronia Bat, the eldest sister of Harry, escaped the South during the war, and we have not since heard from her. Her fate we do not know. Shakespeare Hall, Harry's youngest brother, lived with us several years after the close of the war, but left us, and his mother has heard that he died somewhere in Arkansas. Those of the family of whom I can speak knowingly are well and reasonably prospered. The father of the Bat children, James, Sophronia, and Harry, was a white man and the owner of Eveline. He died in 1849, and I purchased the woman and her children. Henry Hall, the last husband, was not married to Eveline but had a wife in East Mississippi. After the war, a row ensued, and Hall finally took his old wife and left. Where he is now, I do not know. Very respectfully, J. L. Alcorn.
We do not have the responding letter. However, the governor sent a second letter.
Eagle Nest, Jonestown, Mississippi, January 7th, 1882. To L. D. Waters, Esquire, Akron, Ohio. Dear Sir, your letter of the 26th is before me. How strange it appeared to me when reading your letter reciting the fact that Harry has been married 10 years and has had 4 children. To me, Harry appears yet a child, a wild, bad boy. How difficult to realize the rapid flight of time. I am, in truth, glad to hear your flattering report of Harry's good conduct. Be good enough to express to him my sincere gratification. Say to him that your letter made his mother's heart glad. Harry's brother Jim, who now resides in Jackson, Mississippi, is one of the very best men I have known. Long, our dining-room servant, he had charge of all our plate, which he kept and cared for with true fidelity. Honest, faithful, industrious, ingenious, affectionate, we parted with him with regret. Say to Harry that my son, Hal, did not return to me from the war, that he fell in North Carolina. After the war, I removed his body. It now rests in the family burial ground. Milton is likewise dead. He became, at the age of 20 years, a major in the Confederate Army. He was a bold, a brave man, but died 2 years ago, leaving one child, a son of 11 years. Very respectfully, J. L. Alcorn.
The letter from Henry's mother, written in clear, round hand by his sister, is touching in its simplicity and tells of the strange coincidence that brother and sister were for 5 years within a few miles of each other here in Ohio without knowing it.
Eagle Nest, Jonestown, Mississippi, January 1882. My dear son, Henry, it has been a space of time since I received your letter, and I will now answer it with great pleasure. It found me very well, and the family also. My daughter Ida is teaching school in Jonestown. She has 50 scholars. She is very well and sends love. I am living with Governor Alcorn. When you get able, you must come and see me. You must come. Nothing will hurt you. He is dead. He never came back any more after you left. He died on his way back home at Charlottesville. Do you know where Oberlin is? Ida went to school there and remained 5 years. It is very close to where you live. I have wept all these years on account of you. May God bless your children. Your mother, Eveline Batt.
Unfortunately, we don't know who he is. Perhaps a cruel overseer that treated Henry poorly? Henry Hall received several letters from his brother James, of Jackson, Mississippi, as well. The February 15, 1882 issue of the Summit County Beacon provides a fascinating glimpse into Henry's intentions. His plan to travel to the South to reconnect with long-lost family members speaks to the importance of familial bonds and the desire to maintain those connections despite the passage of time. While we may not have concrete evidence of whether Henry embarked on his journey, the hope that he did is heartwarming.